I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 13 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Natural Resources. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee is continuing its study of a greenhouse gas emissions cap for the oil and gas sector. Today is our 8th of 9 meetings with witnesses for this study. And the 9th will be next week with the Ministers for Natural Resources and Environment and Climate Change. Today, we're going to be meeting in public to hear from our witnesses up until 4:30 p.m. We're meeting today in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. We're both in the room and participating remotely by Zoom. The webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entire committee. And I'd like to remind all participants that screenshots or taking photos of your screen while we are in session is not permitted. Today's proceedings will be televised and made available via the House of Commons website. For a quick review of health and safety, we still are in a situation where some health and safety rules apply, so we ask members to wear their mask if walking around the room, and anybody else in the room, please wear your mask unless eating or drinking. For witnesses and members joining remotely, well, and everybody, a few quick points for ensuring we have an orderly meeting today. First of all, interpretation services are available for the meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen to choose floor, English, or French. Members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. And for any witnesses who may be new to the committee process, please speak in a natural conversational sort of speed. If we go too fast, it makes it very challenging for the interpreters to keep up. And so don't feel you need to pack everything into a very tight time frame. Just a nice, naturally paced conversation is appreciated. For the members in the room, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand, and anybody joining remotely, you'll have to use the raise hand function. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking, and if you're on Zoom, you need to mute and unmute yourselves, and in the room, it's controlled by our team here. Reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed through the chair. And for those witnesses who, again, may be new to the committee process, when we get into our questions and answers, each of the members is given a certain amount of time to lead the discussion. Often they have certain questions they want to direct to certain witnesses, and so you can raise your hand feature. The members may or may not get to you, and sometimes they can be a bit abrupt, but that's not to be rude, just to get through their order of business or the questions that they have. So please be with us as we get into our meeting today. I'd like to welcome our members, Ms. Khalid and Mr. McDonald, to the committee today. I think that's all of our guests. And with that, I'd like to introduce our witnesses on the study of a greenhouse gas emissions cap for the oil and gas sector. First of all, we have Laurie Adkin, Professor of Political Science from the University of Alberta. From Clean Fuel Standard Advocates Coalition, we have Ian Thompson, Chair, Coordinating Committee, and Bora Plumtree, Secretary, Coordinating Committee. From the National Coalition of Chiefs, Dale Swampy, President, and from West Coast Environmental Law Association, Andrew Gage, who's a staff lawyer. And I'm going to go through, each person will have 5 minutes for their opening comments. I use a visual card system, so I'll give you the yellow card when there's 30 seconds left in your time, and the red card when the time's up. Don't stop mid-sentence, but wrap up the thought so we can move on to the next presenter or panelist as we move through this afternoon. So with that, Ms. Adkin, I'll turn it over to you, and you have 5 minutes for your opening comments.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I thank you for inviting me to address you. I'm speaking to you from Amisquachi, Waskahikan, Edmonton. I grew up in Ontario and Saskatchewan, and I have lived and worked in Alberta for the past 30 years. 3 generations of my ancestors are buried in Alberta on Treaty 6 land. Here in Alberta, climate destabilization has contributed to multiple crises. More frequent droughts affecting food production, destabilization of hydrological patterns affecting water supply and flood control, increasingly intense and frequent forest fires, and biodiversity loss. All of these impacts further undermine Indigenous economies and cultures. Like many of the witnesses who preceded me, I accept the extensive research showing that a schedule of caps on emissions from the oil and gas sector that will allow Canada to meet its 2030 and 2050 greenhouse gas reduction commitments will entail a contraction in oil sands production. Now, unsurprisingly, representatives of the corporations invested in the extraction and export of oil and gas oppose such a policy. I have addressed their arguments in my written brief in some detail. And today I want to speak to you about why Albertans need a progressive cap on greenhouse gas emissions from the oil and gas sector. A cap that is combined with other elements of a comprehensive package of policies to underpin a just transition to a post-carbon economy. My perspective is that of a political economist who has studied the development of Alberta as a colonial settler state and a petrostate, and the impact of its extractive model of development on ecosystems, on Indigenous communities, on the opportunities available to our young people to choose their life paths, on our public goods and services, on employment and income security, on gender inequality and violence, and on the racialized labor market. I have also studied the effects of the structural power of the fossil fuel industry on our political institutions, on democracy, and indeed on the making of climate policy. Oil and gas extraction has brought Alberta periodic wealth, albeit only a fraction of the wealth it would have yielded had the rent been fully captured by the province's governments. This wealth was neither equally shared nor enduring. It was not invested in ways that would have laid the foundations for a post-carbon economy. Our economy remains highly vulnerable to price fluctuations for commodities traded in global markets. Because of the decisions made by successive neoliberal governments, we lack the fiscal capacity necessary to provide stable funding to public services. Right now, 37% of unemployed Albertans have been out of work for 6 months or more. A labor market skewed to resource extraction entrenches gender inequalities. And this extractive economy has devastated the traditional territories of Cree, Dene, and Métis people. It has left us with an estimated $260 billion in environmental liabilities and no credible plan in sight to finance cleanup and remediation. The planned phasing out of unconventional oil and gas production, in conjunction with investment in new green sectors and just transition policies, will put Albertans and all Canadians on a new development path that offers real security and well-being and real potential for reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. The fundamental obstacles to doing this are not technical, they are political. The most important questions for the federal government then are first how it can strengthen a pan-Canadian consensus about what needs to be done, how it can mobilize citizens' participation in planning and implementing what must now be radical structural reforms of the economy. We need to build a strong consensus around the principles for allocating responsibilities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and for supporting one another through the transition so that no group or region becomes worse off. We need new and reformed political institutions to do this. There is much work to be done to build a shared vision of a post-carbon society that is rooted in decolonization, solidarity, and mutual care. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And now we'll go to the Clean Fuel Standard Advocates Coalition. Will it be Mr. Who's going to be speaking or delivering the 5-minute opening statement here?
Thank you, Chair Aldig.
Perfect, thank you.
My name is Ian Thompson, and I am presenting today as the chair of a formal coalition, a national coalition, the Clean Fuel Standard Advocates. I'm joined by my colleague, Bora Plumtree, who is the secretary of the coalition. The coalition has been active since 2016 and is comprised of all of Canada's non-fossil clean fuel industry associations.
Sorry,
How's the sound?
Mr. Thompson, 1 minute. We just want to check. the translation.
La traduction, c'est difficile.
Okay, we're just having
Yeah.
a slight translation issue, so I'll turn it over to the clerk to get sorted out, and then I'm stopping the clock for you, so you'll still have your full 5 minutes. So just bear with
Great,
me.
and I'm happy to have my colleague Bora Plumtree step in to deliver our remarks if that helps.
I'm getting a nod of the head from the translators, so if that's okay with you, yeah, we can hand that over. All right,
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Plumtree, if you want to start and make the opening comments, please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Bora Plumtree. I'm speaking to you today from Toronto, which is also the traditional territory of many First Nations, including the Algonquin, Anishinaabe, and many others besides. I am speaking on behalf of the Clean Fuel Standard Advocates Coalition today, but I am also the research director of Electric Mobility Canada. As my colleague, Mr. Thompson was saying, our coalition, which is devoted to the Clean Fuel Standard, has been active since the beginning of this policy's development in 2018. Association and NGO members.
We have lost you there, or you froze up, so we'll pause just for a second.
Transportation sector emissions.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Plumtree, you froze there for a second, so we're just getting everything reset. And then if you want to pick it up when I give you the go-ahead from where you're at, maybe back it up 2 sentences from where you were.
My apologies.
No, technology is not always our friend.
Indeed.
Okay,
Am I coming through clearly now?
Yeah, you're good. So if you want to resume, I'll restart the clock.
Thank you so much. All right, well, we have a wide membership in our association representing the full gamut of non-fossil clean fuel industries, from electric vehicles through hydrogen, RNG, biogas, synthetic fuels, and advanced biofuels. And our goal in testifying before the committee today is to relay the critical need to align the design of both the oil and gas cap as new energy and climate policy in this country with a policy that the government has invested a lot of effort and time into designing in the Clean Fuel Standard, if we are as a country to have a coherent strategy to address our large and growing transportation sector emissions. The Clean Fuel Standard as a regulation will be in place soon and will directly have an impact on the oil and gas cap in whatever form it takes, and vice versa. So transportation, as many of you know, I'm sure, is Canada's highest emitting sector on an end-use basis. And it was intended for the CFS to do the heavy lifting in this sector in terms of emission reductions because the sector is so difficult to decarbonize. Let me explain how the CFS connects to your current study. The committee's focus is the fossil fuel emissions from upstream activities that extract and process crude oil and natural gas. Industry firms' pledges to achieve net zero emissions will not reduce emissions from the use of the fuels they sell, however. On a well-to-wheel or full carbon life cycle accounting basis, it is the combustion of these fuels that creates most of the emissions from gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. In fact, 76% of transportation emissions come from the actual burning of fuels. The upstream component of fuel emissions is only a quarter of the full life cycle emissions. And so you can see that the elephant in the room from the point of view of climate change is the combustion emissions. Our other jurisdictions, aside from Canada, have implemented clean fuel standards, but they target almost exclusively these combustion emissions by requiring the use of non-fossil fuels to displace gasoline and diesel. British Columbia's regulation, for instance, relies almost entirely on the use of biofuels, electric vehicles, RNG, and hydrogen. So the draft Clean Fuel Standard design departs from global norms, by creating a disproportionately large role for cleaner crude to meet compliance. Canada's exports of crude oil outnumber domestic use by about 4-to-1, and these exports can count towards CFS compliance, notwithstanding that the CFS is supposed to focus only on fuels in Canada. So this provision and other illogical ones effectively and incorrectly duplicate the purposes of the CFS and the oil and gas sector emissions target, resulting in the double counting of actions to reduce carbon, potentially at least. And this duplication acts as a de facto subsidy for the prolonged use of fossil fuels in Canada and directly disincentivizes greater use of non-fossil fuels that all of the science shows must be at the center of a net zero transportation sector. So our coalition is recommending that the proposed greenhouse gas emissions cap for the oil and gas sector is the proper place to address emissions from the production of fuels, which would then assign to the Clean Fuel Standard its primary purpose, reducing the combustion emissions of transportation fuels. In short, the role of crude oil should be very limited in the scope of the CFS, and this change will make these two regulations work in an aligned manner and address inappropriate and inefficient regulatory duplication. So our second recommendation, if I may, is straightforward. The carbon intensity reduction target for the Clean Fuel Standard is also outdated by the half-decade plus of regulatory development that the Clean Fuel Standard has been subject to. And we believe that it should be increased to reflect not only the increased climate ambitions to which Canada has signed on in the past year, but also the rapid expansion and availability of very low carbon clean fuels. So these two recommendations together are, in our view, vital to making sure that there is an effective clean fuel standard and that this works in tandem with an effective and efficient oil and gas sector emission reduction cap. So my colleague and I look forward to your questions, and I'll just as a final note point out that the Department of the Environment and Climate Change has held a stakeholder meeting on Friday last week to reveal some proposed updates to the Clean Fuel Standard, and we would be happy to address any questions that may arise in relation to this update. Merci aux membres du comité.
Great. Thank you for your patience as we got through that, but appreciate your comments. We're now going to go to Mr. Swampy, President, National Coalition of Chiefs. So over to you for 5 minutes. And you're just need to unmute yourself there.
Sorry, I thought you said they were going to control it.
No, sorry, just in the room. So you'll need to do your own there. But
yeah,
I'll start the clock now for you. Yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from Calgary, Alberta, the traditional territory of the Treaty 7 First Nations and the Blackfoot Confederacy, which includes the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations. Treaty 7 also includes the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda Nation, which includes Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation in Alberta Region 3. My name is Dale Swampy. I'm a member of the Samson Cree Nation and the president of the National Coalition of Chiefs, a coalition of industry supportive chiefs. Our mandate is to defeat on-reserve poverty. We work to establish mutually beneficial agreements between First Nations and industry partners in an effort to enhance economic prosperity of reserve communities. I'm here today because I am very concerned, along with our member chiefs, that a cap on emissions will be, in effect, a cap on production in the oil and gas industry. This will certainly impact the Canadian economy, affect the number of goods out west, and make energy prices around the world even higher without impacting global emissions one bit. But to me, the biggest problem is the way it'll impact First Nation economies and our ability to finally share in Canada's resource economy and get our people out of poverty. We have historically been left out of Canada's wealth and prosperity. I know all the committee members are well aware of this terrible history. But you might not be fully aware of how far Indigenous people have come in fighting for that seat at the table and working with industry to participate in the oil and gas sector. There's still much more work to do for our people to get their fair share. But there isn't a single other sector in Canada that has provided us with as many opportunities, including well-paying jobs, contracts, royalties, and ownership shares. We're talking about billions of dollars in revenues that we are earning. And it pays for housing and cultural programs, and it supports our elders and youth. And we want to own projects like TMX. A number of First Nation groups are competing to buy that project from the federal government. So it's not a subsidy, as a member of this committee stated the other day. It's a business opportunity for our nations that'll bring stable, independent funding to our communities so we can support the service and programs that our people are so desperately lacking. There are customers from our oil in Asia that are lined up for the product that will come through TMX, but we need to be able to produce that oil in the first place to export it. Not to mention the LNG projects on the BC coast and in Quebec and in Newfoundland that First Nations are partnered in and have significant ownership involvement in. The world is crying out for that LNG, and we're having to use coal instead of us supplying it to them. If you put a cap on production, we won't be able to produce and export LNG that so many First Nations are involved in and counting on, and supply that product to Europe and Asia and provide that bridge fuel in the energy transition and help with the energy crisis happening in Europe. So to hear that you are studying how to shrink the oil and gas industry to stop new production just when we've gotten our foot in the door and are positioned to benefit and lead that new growth is incredibly frustrating. The government should absolutely support efforts to reduce emissions intensity in oil and gas productions, such as through carbon capture. We have First Nation communities already involved working in partnerships with industry on big carbon storage projects. One was just announced last week between Enbridge, Alexander First Nation, Alexis Nakota Sioux Nation, Enoch Cree Nation, and Paul Nation, and they have part ownership of it. If this study supports expanding that kind of thing, making Canadian oil and gas emissions intense and providing more opportunities for capital for or Canadian oil and gas less emissions intense and providing more opportunities and capital for First Nations to be engaged in that, I think everybody would be supportive and pleased with that. That would be a positive role for the government. But based on many things I've been hearing, this Parliament seems to treat oil and gas sector like their enemy, a problem to be fixed. Instead, I ask you to work together with industry and First Nations to strengthen our oil and gas sector Indigenous involvement in it, help to reduce our emissions, not by shrinking it and producing less, but through innovations. Help us to supply more global demand instead of leaving it to Russia and OPEC to provide more, while First Nations lose out on the opportunity. The world needs oil and gas. It will need it for decades to come, and I believe the last job should come from First Nation-owned projects in Canada. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. And then finally, for opening statements, Mr. Gage, will go to you, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the committee both for the invitation and for your work investigating this important question. I join you from the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people on southern Vancouver Island. Canada has set its goal to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, and we're pleased that all of your parties have either endorsed that goal or called for even more ambition. Net zero is a goal that's based on the scientific work of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the International Energy Agency, and others, all of whom are clear that it means immediate and dramatic shifts away from fossil fuel use and production in our society. In our view, an oil and gas emissions cap is necessary to help meet Canada's goal. In 1995, when I was 22, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers signed an agreement with the then Natural Resources Minister, Anne McClellan, to support voluntary industrial action to reduce oil and gas industry greenhouse gas emissions and help Canada achieve its goal of returning to 1990 emissions levels by the year 2000. Needless to say, this did not happen. Instead, emissions from the oil and gas sector from then until now grew by about 50%, and the intensity of emissions from each barrel of oil produced in Canada grew by 16%. As a direct result, Canada missed not only its 2000 target, but also its 2012 target and 2020 targets. That's a cautionary tale that I think of when today's oil and gas industry says that it's planning to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. But the fact is that pretty much every country that has ramped up fossil fuel productions, oil and gas production, is now producing more greenhouse gases today than they did in 1990. The countries that are emitting less now than they did in 1990 made different choices and constrained the production of oil and gas and fossil fuels. The goal, of course, is to avoid dangerous climate change. That means ramping down emissions from fossil fuel use and production. Fossil fuel production is a provincial responsibility. Of the provinces, only Quebec, which does not produce oil and gas, has signaled its intention to limit oil and gas production. But the federal government has clear authority, affirmed by the courts, to regulate national greenhouse gas emissions. And we submit it has the responsibility to ensure that one industry's emissions do not compromise our country's ability as a whole to meet national climate targets, as the oil and gas industry has done repeatedly. Given that an emissions cap would be useful, how should it be structured? Here, I would refer you to the submissions made by the Climate Action Network and 6 other signatories, including West Coast Environmental Law, sent to you last week. That letter sets out 5 principles and 20 associated recommendations that we believe should govern the cap on emissions. I don't have time to review them all right now, but I will direct your attention to the first 3 principles. First, the emissions cap needs to follow an aggressive decarbonization pathway that does not prioritize the short-term profits of the oil and gas industry over a safe climate or over other sectors of the economy, which will have to do more to achieve the targets if the oil and gas industry does less. Second, the emissions cap must cover all of the emissions associated with the oil and gas industry and result in net absolute emissions reductions rather than just net emissions reductions. In the coming days, we will be releasing a report, Net Zero or Net Reckless, that points out that while the net zero target means that we may be able to use some technological solutions to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, there are real limits on those technologies. The scientists who proposed net zero as a target are adamant that such technologies must only be used for essential and extremely hard to decarbonize emission sources and to restore the atmosphere by reducing what's already in it, and not as a get out of emissions reductions free card that the oil and gas industry can buy and play. They cannot be used as an excuse to delay drastic emissions reductions or for the industry to meet a cap that should be met through actual reductions. Third, the emissions cap must be enforceable. We're not talking about a policy or an expected emissions pathway, but legally binding mechanisms with significant consequences for failure. The emissions cap must quickly cap emissions from the oil and gas industry and bring them down to align at least with the high end of Canada's legislated 40 to 45% reduction by 2030 target, so that the burden of achieving the targets not passed instead to manufacturing, agriculture, or other sectors. We should not shy away from an aggressive cap that will help the industry shift how it provides energy away from oil and gas to renewable sources of power. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to any questions.
Great, thank you. And I know that 5 minutes goes very quickly, so I appreciate everybody staying close to that. We now have time for 4 6-minute rounds, and so yeah, 24 minutes of questions. So each of the parties will get 6 minutes. So it'll go pretty quickly, and we're going to start off with Mr. Melillo. Over to you for your first 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for joining us here today. I'd like to start with Mr. Swampy, if I can. And I come from Kenora, the Kenora riding in northwestern Ontario, covering treaties 3, 5, and 9, as well as the Métis homeland, and I can appreciate some of the frustration that you conveyed in how we look at economic reconciliation and moving forward together in that respect. So with that in mind, and also considering the government's pledge to work towards UNDRIP and to respect Indigenous rights across the country, I'm just wondering if you can tell the committee if you believe that any any emissions cap that's obviously going to be impacting First Nation development and Indigenous communities across the country, if you believe that cap has to have a consultation process, and more importantly, has to have the consent of Indigenous communities before it can go forward.
Yeah, I mean, that was our biggest problem when we first got organized back in 2017. There was a group of chiefs in Northern Gateway Pipeline who weren't consulted, that kept on requesting meetings time and time again with the Liberal government, and were refused. 31 out of the 40 communities along the right-of-way of Northern Gateway were signed on as equity owners in that project, and the Liberal government refused to meet with us. We flew to Ottawa on almost 20 occasions, protesting against the tanker ban, against the lack of consultation for the CER, the new legislative regime for new projects. We protested against not being able to provide input in the UNDRIP legislation. We protested against many other types of legislations that are important and impact us greatly. And this emissions cap is going to do the same thing. We're going to see a lot of situations where the budgets, the economy, the ability for the government to be able to levy budgets throughout these years of reduced production is going to affect marginal funding programs, and that is First Nations. We are marginal funding programs, and what that means is that our ability to be able to get our people on reserve out of poverty is going to be limited even more because of this. Everybody has complaints about emissions, but nobody provides solutions. I haven't heard a solution here today, and I haven't heard a solution about anything in the past 3 years about tackling climate change. And I think what we have to do is we have to get a sustainable energy plan. That means an energy plan that doesn't ruin our economy, an energy plan that gives us a sustainable transition into green energy. I mean, we're not climate deniers. We're just wanting to be involved in the economy, and we're front and center these days because of the new ESG guidelines. And if these ESG guidelines were incorporated in the 1970s or 1980s, we'd have a good grasp on the economy right now. But it's just too little, too late, and we're struggling to, get our people out of the welfare society that was created.
I appreciate that, and you mentioned in your remarks that it is your mandate to defeat on-reserve poverty, and I think all of us sitting at the table here would applaud that work that you're doing, and I want to pick up on that because you noted the distinction between a cap on emissions versus a cap on production, and of course a cap on production would be sort of an entirely different thing in the sense that it would hurt your communities and hurt our industry and workers much more and probably unnecessarily so. So I'm just curious if I can get your thoughts from the point of view of defeating poverty on what the difference would be between a production cap versus the emissions cap.
Well, the productions cap would go across the field and basically ruin a lot of economies in the West. An emissions cap will allow us to develop sustainable oil production, and that means using carbon capture and utilization and storage facilities to be able to offset the emissions that is used to produce things like we're trying to produce right now. We've got a gas to hydrogen project creating blue energy with a carbon capture utility storage supported by and owned by 14 First Nations here in Canada. We have a CCS program going up north. We have the net zero program, gas to hydrogen, blue hydrogen in Edmonton, supported by the Northern First Nations. We have several other programs that talk about sustainable communities, and that's what we're trying to do, is get our communities to become sustainable. That means produce our own power, manage our own water purification, our own wastewater systems, our own solid waste systems. And we can't do that if we don't have access to a healthy economy. And that healthy economy is dependent on oil production. Oil production is huge in our country, and when you talk about things increasing, I mean, the hockey stick graph that you see all the time is not the only hockey stick graph. There's a hockey stick graph on population. When I was young, when we first got involved in the oil and gas industry back in 1980s, there was only 3 billion people on the surface of the planet. You know, now there's almost 8 billion. There is a hockey stick that should be considered, and stop picking on the oil and gas industry. Start working on something sustainable in terms of solutions, and then we'll get somewhere.
Okay, sorry to jump in here, but that's the end of the 6 minutes. So now we're going to go to Ms. DeBrusen for her 6 minutes.
Thank you. I was hoping to begin with West Coast Legal because I believe that you had started on talking a bit about structure, and I was interested in having some more of your thoughts because we've heard from witnesses with some varied ideas about how to properly structure what we would want to do to reduce emissions from oil and gas. So if I could get your thoughts, one, starting on the larger frame, was that we've heard witnesses suggest that we should just stick with existing tools like the price on carbon pollution, and others who have suggested that we should have a separate cap that we put in place. And I was wondering if you had thoughts about those two options as to the most effective tools.
I mean, I certainly have thoughts. I would love to be able to. So here's the one answer. I mean, the fact is, the reason you're hearing conflicting views on that is because there are pros and cons to both of those approaches. And that's why we've tended to focus in the submissions we've sent with Climate Action Network Canada on the principles that need to underscore either approach that are sort of fundamental. I mean, clearly the commitment made by the Prime Minister was to a cap. So if it is, and it's difficult to see that the commitment can actually be achieved through a pricing mechanism, but the pricing mechanism has clear advantages in terms of already being an existing mechanism in place that could be perhaps ramped up more easily, more quickly. So we have not, we've deliberately not made a final recommendation on that, and I would love to be able to. I mean, there are a lot of complicated pros and cons in play with either proposal.
Yeah, well, just because I have you here for a few minutes, only a few more minutes left, what are the pros and cons that you have with going with the cap?
With a hard cap. Primarily the time involved in putting new legislation in place or a new system in place would be a major one, or is a major con. A pro is that, I mean, the oil and gas industry has a history of sort of being treated perhaps differently than the rest of the industry lightly. Like I know they're complaining now that this is them being singled out, but the fact is they've generally been given a lot of get out of emissions free passes along the way. And knowing that we will actually achieve a certain level of reductions from the industry when it is so important that we actually get this industry that is behind us missing a lot of Canada's targets to date under control would be a significant advantage.
Right. And if we were going with the cap route, which is what the commitment was a cap on emissions, do you have any thoughts on how that would be structured? Because we've also heard some different thoughts about that cap and trade or going through other regulatory mechanisms.
The cap and trade seems like a very well-established route. I mean, Quebec is currently part of a cap and trade system, although for economy-wide rather than for a particular industry. And we have other examples of where that has been done historically and is still being done. Again, without necessarily endorsing that as the most appropriate, that is certainly where my mind goes in terms of how you would deliver a cap system.
Okay. And then if I can go to the clean fuel standards witnesses, you talked about the clean fuel standards quite a bit. I note that there's also a commitment to 100% of new vehicles being sold by 2035 being zero emission vehicles. But on that, I was wondering if you had thoughts about the best structure for a cap. Should we be going, as some people suggested, with just increasing the price on carbon pollution, or would you suggest that a price on a cap on carbon emissions would be better?
Thank you for the question, and I hope my audio is better. We have not addressed that question specifically. We did make a submission to the Net Zero Advisory Body in general support for a cap. Our position more is to ensure that the design of a proposed cap would align with the design of the Clean Fuel Standard and they not duplicate each other's signals. We also note that a lot of work has been done during the last 5 years to develop the Clean Fuel Standard relative to how you could account additionality, et cetera, in a cap. And that might be work that could be repurposed for the purposes of a proposed cap.
Okay. Just one last thing. I'm going to jump quickly to West Coast Legal. Sorry again. But I've been asking a bit about border carbon adjustments and their role if we're putting in place an oil and gas cap on emissions. Do you have any thoughts about that and what we should be doing on a border carbon adjustment?
Well, one of the recommendations that the Climate Action Network groups have made is simply that that we should actually be looking not just at the upstream emissions associated with the oil and gas industry, but also downstream emissions where those are not currently captured by the carbon price. And that may mean that we should be regulating the export of oil and gas and or applying a price at that stage. So that's certainly something that we would be supportive of.
That's all my time. Thank you.
We're going to now jump to Monsieur Simard. Monsieur Simard, vous avez 6 minutes.
Merci.
You have 6 minutes, sir. Thank you. Perhaps a few questions for Ms. Atkin. In your presentation, in your opening remarks, you mentioned that the wealth created by the oil and gas sector did not allow for a just or sustainable sharing of that wealth and didn't allow for sustaining public services either. So I'd like to have you say a bit more about that.
Hello. Yes, thanks for that question. So what has happened in Alberta is that a very, very weak royalty regime over time has not captured a very large portion of the rent from the industry. And in addition to that, we have been subject to the very radical fluctuations in the global price for Alberta's products, exported synthetic crude oil and bitumen. And so this means that we have very little control over revenue when we have up to 30% of our budget coming from oil and gas royalties. So there's a combination of factors. There's the amount of rent that's been not captured. There's the way it was not saved. And then there's the insecurity and the instability of that revenue, which means that we've had a lot of trouble when oil prices fall in actually funding our public services at the levels that are needed.
Merci de votre réponse.
Thank you for your answer. I would like to go back to something else you shared with us about the transition, saying that the barriers, the obstacles were political. You said that the economy needs to be radically reformed, though I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I have the impression that in any political process, oil and gas lobbies tend to have more power than environmental lobbies. So this is a bias, and the oil and gas companies have a good deal more to say in our political choices than those who support the environment. Would you agree with that?
The formation of climate policy in Canada since about 2002. And if you look at how climate policy has been made in Alberta, British Columbia, and at the federal level, you can see the very heavy influence of the oil and gas sector and its lobby organizations, its industry associations, its sphere of think tanks, and so on, in influencing the outcome of the policy. They're very much a principal or privileged stakeholder. They have an insider status with government ministries. And so they are, very close in the design of regulations and in determining the bottom lines of things like carbon pricing.
Vous avez terminé en disant...
And you ended your opening statement by saying that we needed to think out new ways to do politics, new political institutions. What do you have in mind?
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to answer that question. One of the problems we see is that in order to counter this very powerful influence of fossil fuel industry and big business associations, we need to have a very mobilized public that understands what's really at stake here, what the urgency of this climate crisis is, what the implications of it are. And so, any government that's going to take significant action to deal with a climate crisis is going to need public support. It's going to need a well-educated citizenry that, again, understands what's at stake and what the options are on the table before us. We need to have the opportunity to review all of the options and not just a selected few that filter down to us through already privileged interest. And so one of the ways we can think about doing this is to, for example, create regional citizens' assemblies. And these assemblies could also be looking at different sectoral aspects of a broader comprehensive plan for green transition. This would give the government an opportunity to get recommendations from well-informed citizens who have an opportunity to listen to the experts and understand the science and understand the options available. And to take that forward and to say, look, we've consulted citizens, we've had a democratic process, we have this kind of feedback. Now, this process obviously has to be broader than citizens' assemblies because we have to get provincial governments to the table to agree on the principles for allocating responsibility for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and the redistribution of the revenue that's going to have to accompany this to make sure that various regions of the country are not left out. And finally, we need to include First Nations and Métis people in these consultation processes in a different way on a nation-to-nation basis. That this is a process which will become permanent.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but I haven't much time left. But I do thank you for this detailed answer. I have one last quick question for Mr. Gage, if I may. You spoke of restricting production, capping production. I know that constitutionally speaking, this is a difficult matter as it's a provincial jurisdiction, but wouldn't it have a serious effect on the oil and gas sector financially speaking?
Focus has been on what needs to be done to get a stable climate. There would probably be significant impacts, but by signaling it in terms of caps going forward, whether it's through production caps or emissions caps, you're providing some certainty to the industry and their investors so that they can plan for what needs to be done and the transition that needs to occur.
Okay, we're out of time there, and so now we're going to jump to Mr. Angus so he gets his full 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gage, I'd like to begin with you. One of the premises that we're being told to believe here at our committee is that we can continue to increase production, but don't worry, we'll somehow cap emissions, and all these things will somehow make sense. Last week, the government announced 300,000 barrel a day increase in oil. The Canadian energy regulators planning for 1.2 million barrels a day increase based on Canada's plans. Do you think that there's any chance we're going to meet our 2030 targets if that's the kind of increases we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned in my presentation, historically, I don't think there are any examples of countries that have dramatically reduced their greenhouse gas emissions while also dramatically increasing their production of oil, gas, or coal. And I said, so Canada, if it was to do that, would be the first. They generally rely on technological solutions that either carbon capture, utilization, or storage, which for the most part, historically has actually increased emissions, has not actually resulted in decreased emissions, but which does hold out that promise, or negative emissions technologies where we're actually sucking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and then storing it somewhere. All of these technologies are, I think, technologies which at some level have a role in addressing the climate crisis, but the scientists who have told us what net zero means have been very clear that that role is limited. And so it's not the solution that allows us to have our cake and eat it too. It is a one tool in a toolbox that has to include reductions in production.
Thank you for that. I mean, I remember being here when I was told that voluntary emissions were cuts If we let the industry work voluntarily, we'd be there. We're being told there's new technology. CAP, the Association of Alberta Petroleum Producers, is asking for $75 billion because carbon capture is the new miracle solution. Yet Adam Radwanski, hardly an environmentalist writer in the Globe and Mail, writes that even if we give them all this money, we're not going to actually see anything from carbon capture probably till 2028, 2029. And Professor Anderson, who just spoke to our committee, said that it only captures 1% of emissions. Wouldn't we be better off spending $75 billion in public money on other means, for example, transitioning the economy, than in carbon capture that is not going to come on stream for another 7 to 8 years?
I mean, I absolutely would agree with that. There's the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I think it applies absolutely to these respective technologies. With carbon capture and storage, you're trying to put the genie back in the bottle after you've already let it out. And it's much better to reduce our emissions wherever possible. And if carbon capture and storage or negative emissions technologies that are used, it should be for the most difficult to decarbonize industries only, and for those that we cannot possibly move away from, as well as in the case of negative emissions technologies, to actually suck the carbon dioxide that's already in the atmosphere back out and try and make the situation better than it will otherwise be.
Thank you for that. Well, I mean, we did have a letter from 400 scientists and environmentalists pleading with the government this was unproven technology, but then Big Oil had 6,800 meetings with this present Liberal government, so we know who's got their ear. And for that, I'd like to go to you, Professor Adkin. I think what's frustrating is that we're looking at Alberta still as a land of huge opportunity. Alberta will lead in the energy transition if the investments are made. Global Edmonton and Calgary Economic Development Report talks about the potential of an economy of $61 billion for Alberta and 171,000 jobs if the investments are made in clean tech. And what we see is Jason Kenney and this government backing them, continuing to support Big Oil. What do you think as an Albertan for the potential to transform the economy by making a serious investment in clean tech?
There have been a number of studies showing the potential for the creation of jobs in many new sectors, including renewables, energy retrofits, cleaning up the abandoned oil wells, dealing with environmental remediation, doing restoration work on the watersheds, in regenerative agriculture, in tourism, and there are many, many areas. I also would just like to remind the committee of the testimony of Melody Lapine when she was with you on March 21st. And she talked about the potentials for development of Indigenous economies that are not reliant on the oil sands or an oil and gas extraction. And she said that there has to be a transition framework, that they have been asking for the federal government to cooperate and to help fund such opportunities for Indigenous peoples in the oil sands region. She talked about the possibility of
because I'm just running out, but her testimony is very powerful and I think will be very helpful. I just want to end. My in-laws spent their career in the oil patch, and they had a real belief back when Peter Lougheed said that money was going to be used to build a better future for Alberta, and consecutive Conservative governments gave it away. And now we're stuck with the $1 billion abandoned orphaned wells. We don't have a government provincially that seems to have any kind of plan. What do you think should be done in terms of our future potential? Should we keep giving it away to the oil lobbyists, or should we be investing it in an economy for the people of Alberta?
Well, as one of the signatories of the letter you just mentioned, I do actually believe that it would be a mistake for the federal government to hand over $50 to $75 billion tax credit to the oil and gas sector for CCS technology. And as I explained in my written brief, if the industry does think this is the magic ticket to reducing its greenhouse gas emissions in the time frame required, it should be financing this itself. The reason it's not financing it is that it knows that it's a very high risk that they will make an upfront investment like this and never get the return back before their industry becomes unprofitable. Therefore, they want the public to pay for it. And so we need to be putting our very valuable public revenue into the solutions that we know work. We need to be building out very rapidly the renewable sector, and we need to be investing heavily in energy efficiency areas where we have the greatest possibility of gains, which with the lowest ecological cost. So those are the things that I would recommend.
And sorry with that.
Et pardon, maintenant nous manquons de temps, nous ne pouvons pas poursuivre. C'est allé très rapidement, tout à fait. Je tiens un oui, mais appel à l'ordre.
It's Greg McLean here.
Yes.
This is a serious study we're undertaking here, and you've given it short shrift. We've had a number of witnesses here that we should be able to question some of the facts they've allegedly put on the table here. So an hour without anybody actually being able to question them on some of the information that we've heard here is short shrift for what should be a very serious report, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to ask you to open this up for the next hour, perhaps schedule a business meeting for another time, because there's some important, this is a report, and we can only use the information we hear at this committee in the report. And I will say very clearly, there's been a bunch of misinformation here that I think we do need to question the witnesses on, and we do need that time, Mr. Chair.
And I appreciate your point of order, although we had published a notice, and we do need to stay with that. We said there would be 1 hour for witnesses, and we do have important subcommittee business that we need to get to. I've explained at the previous meetings
order.
where you haven't been here that we are extremely tight on House resources right now, and the only time we can get to the committee business, including planning our next study, is in the next hour that we have allocated. So with that, we're going to adjourn today's...
Point of order. Point of order.
Okay. Point of order. Is yours a point of order? Okay, 2 points of order.
Yes. Well, I'm just...
Okay,
I would normally completely agree with Mr. McLean because I think these witnesses are incredibly important. The issue is it was the Conservatives who said they wanted to do committee business and they wanted to cut our meeting by an hour. So we agreed because the Conservatives wanted to bring back their motion. Otherwise, we'd be doing what we should be doing, which is hearing witnesses. So we agreed to suspend so that we could get to committee business to help the Conservatives out. So that should have been a discussion they had before they came to the meeting.
Well, just, yeah, and so what I'm going to do is we're going to conclude the meeting right now with a thank you to the witnesses. The witnesses do have an opportunity to just, I'm in the middle of my sentence, okay? And I'm only taking points of order right now. So if it's not a point of order, we're going to continue on with the business as published. And so what we had decided, what I was saying is I wanted to thank the witnesses for being here. I knew this was going to be a very tight one. You are invited to submit briefs up to 10 pages. And so if you have heard things from testimony that you don't agree with, you are able to
Yeah, well, point of order, Mr. Chair, one more time, if I can. I mean, if you're going to let these witnesses go after one round of questioning without us even being able to test them on some of what they put on the table here, then you need to call them back for at least another hour.
Well, we're at okay, even though it's published. So the issue we're up against is that we have a whole bunch of business that we have been asked to put forward or to consider this spring. We have motions from all parties, and as I've noted, we have very little time to actually do this. Anyway, it's
Mr. Chair, I'm going to protest because
where I'm going with this is that in order to adjourn, we do need to have a majority in support, and so if you know, so
I'm still on a point of order here, Mr. Chair. The issue we have here, of course, is that there seems to be so much business, and you're saying it's a lack of resources from the House here that are available. Well, I'm going to say it's enough of that excuse because of COVID and everything else. You've got to start getting the resources available for this committee to meet and discuss the important issues before this committee. So I don't want to hear another reason from there's a lack of House resources. Get the House resources. Let's get these committees working well again, please, Mr. Chair. And this committee needs to come back and address, so we can address some of the information that's been put on the table by some of the witnesses here.
Mr. Angus, do you have a point of order?
Well, I mean, we had really incredible witnesses last week who were only given an hour because the Conservatives want to do business. So he can protest all he wants. They had a choice of what kind of witness, of who was going to speak for them, and they didn't. So we need to get to business. If they want to extend the emissions cap study because they don't like what they're hearing, I don't have a problem with that, but then that has to come back as committee business. But right now, you have a mandate to suspend, and I say I vote to adjourn.
Okay, well, with that, that is a, we have a motion to adjourn, and that needs to be voted on before we can do anything else. So I have to call the question. Do we have support? All in favor of motion to adjourn? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And opposed? 3, 4 opposed. And so with that, we are 5. So we'll be adjourning this meeting. I'd like to thank the witnesses for being here. And Mr. Morris, I never got to see you, but thank you. Okay, well, we have just moved to adjourn, so I'm going to adjourn this part of the meeting, and then we'll be coming back and closed as soon as we can get the cameras reset and those joining remotely coming back in.